Hi, my name's Gareth Spence and I'm currently in San Jose at the global headquarters of Brocade, a company that's synonymous with the data center. I'm here to talk about the company's demo facility and how this facility is helping customers to develop their networks. To do this, I'm joined by three key players in the industry. Firstly, John Hudson, Principal Engineer at Brocade. Luke Ceuppens, Senior Vice President of Business Development at ADVA Optical Networking. And Schlegel, Director of Data Center Solutions at ADVA Optical Networking. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate your time. I'd like to jump straight into the discussion, John, by talking about the demo facility. Why is this an important resource for the enterprise community?
Well, the challenge that any group has when looking at any kind of new solution is that essentially, as much as we'd like to think that everyone's the same, there are significant differences in the way everyone lays out their data center based on the, backgrounds that they've had, resources they have, verticals they're in, regions they're in, and so forth. And so essentially what this allows customers to do is to come to us with a design that says, this is how our data center looks. And then a large team of people will actually take that information, work with them over the phone, meticulously build out as close to their environment as we can, including spools of fiber to simulate distances and so forth. And then we then install the equipment they're looking to acquire in their environment. And then they can come out for a day, 2 days, 5 days, and essentially beat it up, kick the tires, break it, see where it fails, see where it succeeds, and essentially be able to walk into that deal with wide eyes as far as exactly what they're getting, what value they're going to see, and most importantly, 6 months from now, after they've installed it, how is their life going to be different, right? How is this going to change the way they do business?
Wow, so it really enables them to see into the future and to glimpse what's going to happen to their real network once they deploy.
Ideally, yep.
Cool. Okay, good. Luke, I know you were here recently and you showed some customers around the demo facility. What was their response to what they were seeing?
Oh, it was great. Customers love it. We've seen similar reactions with other demo centers we have across the world. In today's environment, as John pointed out, complexity is getting higher and higher. Investments are higher and higher. So people want the assurance to be able to test equipment in an environment that is proven, surrounded by qualified engineers that can help them to better understand the equipment, configure the equipment, run the applications, and then maybe most importantly, test the performance boundaries of that application. And that's exactly what happens here.
Okay. I had the fortune of going around the demo room a few days ago and was shown some of the hot technologies that are developing there. John, what are some of the trends that some of the customers are asking for, some of the developments they want to see?
Well, essentially it continues on the same theme in that most groups are seeing the number of devices they're being asked to manage going up exponentially. And if they are lucky, their head count is flat. In most cases, it'll be on some sort of a negative 5% tick in the effort for efficiencies. And so if you have exponential growth in the number of devices you're managing and flat growth in headcount, what choice do you have? You have to automate. You have to make things more intelligent. You have to simplify. You have to essentially do significantly more with less. Whereas it wasn't too many years ago that 100-to-1 ratio of a human to device was something that someone could talk about. Now you hear 10,000 and you hear you hear some pretty crazy numbers being thrown out. And so essentially, whether it is through tighter integration with the applications, whether it is through software-defined strategies, whether it is through abstraction and virtualization, everyone's trying to figure out, okay, how do we continue to scale this data center at the rate we're currently scaling at without hiring a small country to manage it?
Okay, wow, challenging. If we dig down a little deeper into some of the actual technologies on display there, I understand that Gen 5 Fibre Channel is something that people can actually see in operation.
Absolutely. Anytime that the funny thing about storage is that storage is something that grows no matter what's going on. Whether the economy is doing well or not, whether governments rise or fall, everyone's recording it. And so as a result, data speeds and data bandwidth necessities are constantly growing. As you start looking at virtualization, this gets compounded by the fact that you now have many operating systems on the same server that are accessing that storage. And so essentially what you can see here is the next generation Gen 5 fiber channel technology that brings things like 16 gig throughput, encryption on the ISLs and so forth, that basically allows people to extend that, that fiber channel environment and continue to get what they've always had, which is something that they don't have to worry about.
Okay. And the key thing, I suppose, for people watching that are not familiar with this terminology, Gen 5 fiber channel is something that Brocade is really driving.
So essentially, it's always been a challenge coupling a technology label with a speed, when the speed is really only one attribute of that technology, and there's no guarantee that versions are always going to lie with speeds. You could certainly have situations where you have more than one speed supported for a generation. So by moving away from the speed-based terminology, Gen 5 basically allows people to talk more about all the other features that come along with it, aside from just speeds and feeds, but also allows more open relationships later as far as what would Gen 6 look like, what would Gen 7 look like, and so forth.
Ollie, let me bring you into the discussion here as well. What are you hearing from your customers about Gen 5 fiber channel and the move to 16 gig?
I mean, from talking to our customers and also to the enterprise community, I mean, what we see a really strong move also for connectivity to Gen 5. And while you have to support all those features Gen 5 offers, and it's not only the speed, we have developed a significant or a special technology in order to make that possible, in order to make sure that our products are really improving or helping to improve the data center connectivity in order supporting all that stuff.
Okay. A lot of your customers, financial community, banks, traders and such like, working in these mission critical environments, how does Gen 5 help them?
Well, I mean, at some level, data centers should be boring.
Okay.
Right? This is, especially a data center managing money. Excitement means the unknown. Excitement means being hit by things that you weren't prepared for. You do not want to be doing things unknown or things you were unprepared for in a data center. So essentially what Gen 5 does is it gives people a continued runway to continue to grow those environments that basically give them the kind of crazy uptime that they've come to expect with Fibre Channel, to get them to a point where, instead of arguing about who caused the last downtime, they're arguing about when the last time the downtime happened.
Okay, love that quote, by the way. Data centers should be boring. That's fantastic. Okay, Luke, two of the key applications that a lot of people are talking about are server virtualization and the development of cloud architectures. What are your customers asking for there in regards to the development of those two applications?
Well, it's related to what John mentioned before, right? You look at it, data's getting bigger, budgets are getting smaller, and it's a contradiction. So the challenge for our customers is that, how do they manage to handle that surge in data traffic? How can they move it between data centers in a reliable, secure, high-speed fashion? And that's where the limited budget bring people into virtualization, because they can do more with less physical hardware, and cloud architectures basically allow them to improve connectivity and again use resources that they don't really have to build. And it ultimately allows them to run their data centers more reliably with less people.
Okay. You mentioned virtualization and the use of shared resources. And in a way, there's kind of a parallel between ADVA and Brocade there, kind of sharing resources and things. And Ollie, I'd like to ask about the partnership between Brocade and ADVA. How does it work? What's happening?
I mean, we are working quite for a longer time together, especially when it comes to jointly look at this fiber channel market. One from the switching side, we are from the transport side. I guess we're working with since over more than 10 years now, and jointly trying to develop that a solution for the customer where the customer can rely on. So it must be reliable for the customer, it must be available all the time for the customer, and this is what we kind of achieve together.
Okay, in regards to what you achieved together also, Gen 5, is there a interoperability there as well?
Oh, of course. I mean, we currently, we just launched our 16 gig cards a couple of months ago, and we just heard as of today that we are the first listed in the Brocade matrix and get the qualification, especially the stamp for Gen 5 transport.
So Luke, what does a Brocade qualification mean for the enterprise community?
Well, it's exactly what the word says. It's peace of mind, it's a stamp of approval, it's a guarantee that the equipment will interwork as advertised. So the peace of mind is something that customers need. As we mentioned before, they make very big investments in this technology. They want to make sure it works. And the testing is thorough. It's not just picking up the phone and asking for that approval. No, you go through some rigorous testing, different application scenarios, so that when you actually interconnect it in the real world, it will work as advertised.
Sure, okay. You mentioned there the industry seal of approval. And while I was in San Francisco last week, I was talking to a few engineers about Fibre Channel, and they were really discussing whether Fibre Channel was kind of dead in a way, that they had no real future, that Ethernet was going to become the dominant technology. Now, I appreciate that that's perhaps somewhat of a provocative statement, but I was wondering if there's any real truth to it. John, I wonder what your response is.
Well, I mean, look, the challenge is that any new technology that is trying to prove itself looks for someone else who can knock off the hill. The challenge is that it's rarely what we see. Usually what we see is that new technologies become additional blades in the Swiss Army knife. They become additional tools in the toolbox. They're rarely the type that will supplant their technology. And so essentially you look at some of the new technologies that have come out. We've seen things, great movement in the NFS world with things like PNFS. We've seen iSCSI do really well with the additions of things like iSCSI TLV and 10 gig performance. FCOE has come a long way, still has a way to go, but has made very, very good progress. And then Fibre Channel is still what people install when they don't want to think about it. They don't want to worry about it. They want to just work. They want it to just function. They don't want it to be exciting. They don't want anyone exclaiming, "I've never seen that before," or "Hey, that's the first time that's happened," right? They want everything to be very mundane, very boring, very consistent. It just works. And that's what people get from Fibre Channel, and that's what people will continue to get from Fibre Channel, hopefully long after I'm still working.
Okay, fantastic. Ollie, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's just as John pointed out, I mean, it just should work. And this is exactly how we build our devices in order to make it as simple as possible from an operation point of view, that people just can connect their stuff with no worry about anything, no worries about configuration, just drop it and forget it.
Luke?
No, I echo these sentiments, and while it's true that Ethernet is obviously more and more prevalent, in the data center, there's much more than Ethernet. There's a legacy there, and people like an evolutionary approach much more than a revolutionary approach in that case. You see that everywhere. So that's where I believe Fibre Channel has its place, or Gen 5 as we should call it now. People that prefer to do Ethernet can do Ethernet, obviously, so you have the choice.
Yeah.
But we know that the Fibre Channel technology works. It's reliable, it's fast, it continues to be evolved, and people will continue to deploy it.
Okay. And you guys do it all anyway, don't you? So if you want data center bridging, you can have that. If you want Fibre Channel, you can have that.
You have to give choice. Customers don't usually wake up in the morning and think, "Oh, I'm going to run iSCSI today." You know, they get applications that have requirements, they get business requirements, they get mandates, they get requests, and they fulfill them to the best of their ability. And that requires them to use different protocols and different technologies and different standards. And so from our point of view, it's, you know, how many would you like? You know, it's about helping people get their jobs done. It's not about, you know, political, you know, or religious looks at protocols and this kind of, you know, us versus them sort of mentality, because essentially people just need to get their jobs done. And so most environments have multiple protocols, and they should. And, you know, whether it's on an Ethernet fabric or a Fibre Channel fabric, we just want it on a fabric.
Sure, okay. John, I was speaking to a member of your team this morning about VCS technology, and they were talking about the term the new data center. What is the new data center?
Well, essentially, you know, one of the things that you saw, you know, I mean, there was many advantages that came out of the virtualization trend that we saw a couple of years ago, but the one that often gets kind of missed is that it had a phenomenally dramatic impact on deployment times. In the time from when a project gets, you know, a green light to when applications are actually up and running in the data center can be a very long time, and that's an opportunity cost, it's a resource cost, it's a constraint, whatever you want to call it. And for many customers, the deployment of a server would take days, weeks, sometimes months. I had multiple customers that had a 60-day turnaround time from execution to server in a rack actually running. Virtualization made this go from, you know, days to minutes, where now you can just right-click on something and create a new operating system. But that doesn't do you any good if all the other phases of the project are still measured in days or weeks. And so essentially what this next generation data center does is it takes a software-defined approach to it and says that same methodology, that same dynamic nature, all the things that come with it, the cloning and the links and you know, all the replication and efficiency technology that comes with it, we need to see that with our routers and our switches and our storage and every other piece of our environment. And so it's about right-click data center. It's about being able to essentially just grab a known good model, a known good data center that you know functions, you know works, take it, clone it, and replicate it, and know that it's going to be the same thing, and get all the same deployment benefits to routers and switches and firewalls and load balancers and all those things that you got a couple years ago from server virtualization. And so it's about how do we make it more nimble, how do we make it quicker, and how do we guarantee that, you know, no one's waiting on IT anymore.
Sure, okay. And Luke, how does ADVA help Brocade with the development of this new data center?
Well, what we bring is transport, you know, reliable, fast, secure transport. You know, as John pointed out, for me, you know, the data center of the future is what you see behind this glass wall, and that's a piece of it. What you do with these building blocks is you interconnect them using our equipment so that you basically build one large distributed data center. And then where SDN comes in is really that you start automating the orchestration, the you know, bringing up connectivity, moving connectivity from one side to another, such that the applications can actually drive it more dramatically. So it's actually more of a software-driven network than it is a software-defined network. I think it's a bit of a misnomer there. And that's really where you actually get that benefit, is that you have less people involved. You can automate more, and then you know, the testing brings the peace of mind, the confidence that this will actually work. And an automated data center is by default a more reliable data center.
Okay.
The challenge is that we all get very focused on speeds and feeds and bits and bytes, but the challenge is that it's humans that use these things. And humans care about things like Easter and football games and holidays, and those things are sometimes predictable, they're sometimes not. They're political events or weather occurrences and so forth. And so if you really want a data center that can react as quickly as it needs to respond to the customer, which in most cases are humans, then you need something that can respond much faster and much more dynamically than what we offer people today.
Okay, so we started to touch upon the topics of SDN there and OpenFlow. John, can we dig a little bit deeper just to talk about what exactly Brocade is doing in those camps? And
yeah, so I mean, there's still a certain amount of definition reach going on in that, I would argue that there's still some undecided debates going on as to, is SDN purely the OpenFlow aspects of the decoupling of a control plane and a data plane? Does SDN include things like orchestration, automation, things like an OpenStack? Does it include things like network function virtualization, NFV? But whether you want to consider these three things to be part of the same camp or whether you want to consider them to be separate things, they all come back to what we've been talking about this whole time, is how do you automate, how do you simplify, how do you remove humans from the decision? And so we have, been making great progress on all three fronts, and that essentially, for VCS as well as several other products, we've made great movement on the OpenStack side, as well as looking at some other things like NetConf and RESTful API type environments. On the OpenFlow side, we've been involved with Internet 2, as well as several other projects, and have been able to demonstrate our OpenFlow capabilities, even on a very public forum where you can go and look at router statistics online. And then with the acquisition of Viata last year, we bring in the network function virtualization side of it, which is what allows you to create virtual routers and virtual switches and so forth. And so essentially, no matter whether you're looking at the deployment side of it, the routing and policy side of it, or the orchestration side of it, we're bringing in things like the virtual ADX, Viata, OpenFlow, hybrid mode, OpenStack, cloud, all these different things to essentially give you the ability to react as quickly as you've always wanted to.
Great, okay, so Luke, Uli, what is ADVA doing in this space?
ADVA was the first transport vendor to bring SDN to the optical layer. Recently we demonstrated at Internet 2 automation and orchestration of network connectivity, interconnecting data centers, and have connectivity driven by the applications. We're still running several test beds with partners, including Brocade, where we continue to refine that, where we provide the infrastructure, other people, universities, educational institutions write software that actually allows these applications to drive that. So there's this ecosystem building up with people testing what SDN can actually bring to them. Because SDN, as John pointed out, is a very vaguely defined term to the point that SDN is whatever you want it to be. So we've taken a very pragmatic approach and saying, okay, now how can we use this in our world? We provide transport solutions, Brocade provides switching and data center solutions. Educational institutions have actually the need to be more dynamic. They also have limited budgets, so this is, there's different factors playing there. And we're really trying to figure out how can we make this happen in a phased approach.
Okay. And we have a big advantage also in that, because we have seen this coming for a while. So we developed a technology called control plane for our devices, which gives us the opportunity and the simplicity to just more or less by mouse click connect path through our optical networks, which is now a big benefit. So we just have to combine this with the availability to speak OpenFlow literally, and so we are quite more or less ready to go with that.
Okay, well, while we're looking at the future, I'd like to close the discussion by asking each of you, in a few key words, what is the future of the data center? Maybe 3 key words or less. What would you say?
Humanless, automated, and instant.
Okay, good. Luke?
Globally boring.
Wow, okay, fantastic. Uli?
Effective, resilient, and highly virtualized.
Okay, the future. Fantastic. Guys, thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to know more about any of these topics, please either visit www.fibre.com brocade.com or www.advaoptical.com. Thank you.